died from measles. We've already seen that a couple of times in this particular outbreak. There is a very late complication, which is 100% fatal, called subacute sclerosing panencephalitis, which may appear years after your acute measles illness. It's quite rare, but it is 100% fatal and a devastating complication.
So this is
Measles is one of those diseases that since we've been given the vaccine, it's gone, and physicians may not even recognize it other than the textbook pictures. But there was an epidemic in 1993. I lived it and I got the measles. And I can attest that the patient had high fevers, 104, 105, the cough, cold, congestion, the eyes, and they described the rash. It's like almost taking paint and dropping it on the head, and it drips on down the body. The Koplik spots, truthfully, I don't think anybody ever saw them. They could maybe I've seen it once on one kid where they had like a lice molecule or something in the back by the molars, but the complications of pneumonia, otitis, mastoiditis, dehydration, encephalitis, very real problem. I witnessed them.
In George, the conjunctivitis, which is an early symptom, I am informed, is not just a little bit of goopy eyes. This is like
It's lip blowing red.
a virus kind of conjunctivitis.
Yeah, it's lip blowing red, and it's horrible.
And it doesn't have pus, so it's a vascular problem. And a lot of patients also have severe photophobia, and the Koplik spots are on the buccal side, not by the molar. And it's pathognomonic, and it's seen quite frequently, but they are seen before the rash starts. So by the time the patient comes in with a rash, we will often miss it. The terrible thing about subacute sclerosing panencephalitis is that it is a regressive, progressive disease. So you have a normal child going to school, and they will start not performing as well academically in school, and they will progress to having intractable seizures and then followed by death. And there's absolutely nothing you can do as this progresses, and you watch a child wither away and die. I cannot imagine as a physician, let alone as a parent, to watch this in your child. Just horrendous.
And one thing that's actually not that uncommon among people who have had measles is that measles has an unfortunate predilection for wiping your immune memory for a lot of other things that you've been vaccinated for or that you've had natural immunity to. And so you'll find yourself immunologically vulnerable to things that you previously were not.
Absolutely. How contagious is measles?
It is simply the most contagious thing that we would ever see, that we know of. Some of the listeners may have heard of a calculation called R0, and it is important to understand what that means and what it doesn't mean. It refers to the contagiousness of a particular infectious disease in a completely susceptible population, which is not what we're dealing with. Different agents, infectious agents, it's a useful measure to understand how contagious measles is. And so if you consider more familiar things that we know about influenza, COVID-19, which have R0 values, 1.5 to 3, depending upon what strain you're dealing with, some a little bit more. Chickenpox has an R0 value of about 10 to 12, and then measles is about 12 to 18. So what that refers to is in a completely susceptible population, one ill individual with measles would be expected to cause 12 to 18 additional cases.
And now there's some viral factors why that happens too, but that long incubation period, so the patient is completely, from what you can tell, normal up to 3 weeks, and they may be spewing the virus out their nose and there's no symptoms. So if you're a vulnerable population exposed to measles, 90% will get infected. And if that wasn't bad enough, if you walk into a room after 2 hours after somebody has been in the room with measles, you may still be infected. It's an incredibly dangerous disease as far as its ability to infect vulnerable populations.
And it's actually a bit of a, what that's demonstrated very well in the population of people that are now suffering with this out in West Texas. They may live out in rural areas of West Texas, but they tend to drive long distances for shopping and visiting family. And there was one individual who later developed measles who had been to San Antonio and San Angelo, and had been in high density population areas well before this person